Welcome back in, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined here by Jason Caldwell and Christian Clemente on this episode. Hesitate to call it a reaction episode because it is currently 9 o'clock at night, and the news has been out for quite some time, but it's obviously been a busy day for us, and so we wanted to convene at the end of the day. What'd you say?
Said why?
Yeah, something happened. It's funny. An Auburn staffer came by us at one point in the day and said, "What are you guys all doing here? What you guys got nothing better to do?"
Yeah,
of course,
on the picnic tables outside. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I like to do. Of course, Hugh Freeze has been fired. Everybody knows that by now. He is out with 3 games to go in year 3. As me and Jason talked about on the post-game pod not that long ago, actually on the same day, because I think it was past midnight. It sort of felt like the Kentucky game was the breaking point. It felt like you really could not come back from that one. But Jason, the main thing is it wasn't just that game. There was a reason that game was the breaking point. It's not like it was like, wow, man, their offense was really bad and we got to do something to get this fixed. No, this was a slow decline in a lot of different ways. And really at the end of the day, it was an offensive minded coach that you hired, and his offense never really got off the ground and never got to places that you wanted it to be. And just to be plain and simple, I think it's about as simple as that when it comes to Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, no, you look at it and you're right. The crazy part is that you start looking at it going, the difference in offense, year one, you go 26 points a game. Last year, they averaged 27.8 points a game, turned the ball over a lot more. But even in those games, against conference games, you're 19 points a game. So you're like, against ranked teams, you're 14 points a game. You're like, okay, it's got to get better this year. You go and add those pieces, and you add the quarterback, you add those things, and you look up and you're 22 points a game now. Conference games, you're averaging 15 points a game, and against ranked teams, 13.5 points per game. That's it. It is the fact that it hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse. You've added pieces, you've spent more money on a roster, you've added offensive linemen, you've added wide receivers, you went out and gotten a 1 but 2 transfer quarterbacks. All those things should add up to this being a better offensive team. Because look, we talk about it. This defense has played well enough for you to be competing, to be in the hunt for something here at the end of the year. But the lack of offense has done, and you're right, it wasn't just a Kentucky game. I mean, it felt like that was the tipping point. It felt like that for us last night, because I think we all probably felt like you go out and play well against Kentucky, and you're 5-4 going into these last few, and you start looking at it going, okay, man, you built a little momentum on offense. It felt like, okay, that there may be a path for this thing to get you another year. Last night, it didn't feel like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, Christian, I'm thinking back now to when you and I, the day after Brian Harsin got fired, maybe it was the day after, when Brian Harsin got fired, there was just so much dirt is the wrong word for it, I think, but there was so much under the hood of that coaching tenure that was just awful. It doesn't feel that way this time around. And again, just like I said before, and look, there's a pretty vast list of things Hugh Freeze did not do well at Auburn and things that weren't accomplished well at Auburn. But from your perspective, from a recruiting perspective, that was never the issue with this program. But the fact that you had all the recruiting and then couldn't do anything with it, that of course ended up being probably his biggest downfall is just having such a talented roster this year and not doing anything.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, when Brian Harsin got fired, you could write different stories, do different podcasts, why Brian Harsin's out, point to different things, so many different areas you could go. With Hugh Freeze, it's as simple as, I mean, you said it in our live chat that we did with VIP subscribers on Sunday night over at auburnundercover.com, which if you're not a sub, you can join us at 60% off. We're running that promo right now. You said he's an offensive coach and the offense sucked. Like, sorry, that's just straight up the honest truth with the situation of why you're moving on from Hugh Freeze right now. You've accumulated so much talent. You are in the top half of the SEC, which means you're in the top 10 in the country, probably somewhere right around there. I think the 247 team talent had Auburn right around 10 to 12, somewhere in there. You were a top 15, we'll say that, top 15 talented team in the country with all these different pieces, and you just couldn't put it together even remotely on offense. And Jason, you guys talked about it on the post-game pod after the Kentucky game. It was never more obvious than when Ashton Daniels comes in after playing decently at Arkansas and looking solid, and he comes in against Kentucky, and it looks like you're watching Jackson Arnold again. It looks like you're watching the exact same quarterback. You're watching the exact same issues pop up. And it's like, okay, if you haven't gotten to this point already, now you can truly identify there's something wrong schematically on offense. There is something wrong there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Ashton Daniels is a Heisman candidate and Jackson Arnold is a Heisman candidate. There's not fault. You can't take away some of the fault from the quarterback position as well, because it does fall on those guys. But at the end of the day, it falls on the head coach, and that's why we're sitting here covering another coaching search.
Yeah, you look at it and it's total failure. When you look at the offense, you start at quarterback and you go, man, well, maybe you make a quarterback change that fixes everything. And last night we're like, uh-oh. I mean, that's really what it felt like. Now, the field position was awful. That was brutal field position game for Ashton Daniels to have to play in that offense. But you still had an opportunity to get an interception and go down and kick a field goal. You still didn't make plays in key situations. You had, it total malfunction, and it's across the board. Like, wide receivers has a couple games where they dropped it. Didn't get the ball to them very much, not nearly enough this season. The offensive line, what we thought was going to be a strength, and people are now coming down hard on us going, why'd you say that? Because you look at them and you go, man, physically those guys look good, and they were all highly rated.
And the NFL scouts,
because NFL scouts said it.
NFL folks are telling us, so look, we got 4 or 5 of these guys in the top 60 players in the country right now. Okay, that means you should be better, and they weren't.
It's the same issues. It's all the stunts and the twists. It's the same issues.
Yeah, I think it's everything under the sun. It's schematics. It's what you're trying to do on offense. It's design. It's play calling. It's the quarterback not getting rid of the football. It's the offensive lineman missing block. It's all of it. And in the end, that's what gets you, is when it's not one thing. And Nathan, back to something you talked about it and Christian reiterated, when it's a defensive guy and the offense doesn't work, you go, okay, go fix it. When you're hired to be the offensive guy and it doesn't work, there's no fix. That's the problem. And so that we've seen it now for this 3 in a row. Brian Harsin was a much different scenario. But Gus Malzahn went, look, you're an offensive guy. It's not working. It didn't. You couldn't get back to that level you got to in a couple of seasons consistently. You couldn't get back there. And then you look at the same thing, and this is much worse under Hugh Freeze, but it's the same situation. Going, look, you're an offensive guy and you can't fix it. And so now, searching for another head coach. We talked to Tate Johnson today, and this is his 3rd one. He's only been here since 2020. And so for Auburn, it's another opportunity to get it right. And, man, you got to get it right. And I do, before I know I'm hogging the airwaves here, but somebody's talking about it going, look, like, who's going to get Auburn, to the championship level? And we're like, you're just trying to get back to level. That's the point right now, is folks still have it in their mindset. And hey, listen, I grew up Auburn. Auburn football's been my whole life, and growing up doing these things. I can say this because I'm not some outsider, and none of us are. But listen, Auburn football hasn't been that. It's been a while. Listen, we were talking about it. We were like, got to get back to championship level. The last time Auburn even was in sniffing champ was 2017. That's 8 years ago. The people you're recruiting right now, they're in the 5th grade. Since you're even in contending for one, you got to get back to creeping towards one first. And in this day and age, it means this hire is going to be really important.
I just want to get off one more point about the offense really quickly. Someone asked during the live thread, they said, when did you know it was over? I'm not saying this is when I knew like, oh, Auburn's moving on from Hugh Freeze, but for me, it was the Texas A&M game this year where you came out and you had issues against Oklahoma, but it's like, okay, this is fixable. This is fixable. Ref maybe missed a call there. Maybe things can swing your way. You're playing against statistically a worse defense in Texas A&M, and the game plan looked significantly worse when you went to Texas A&M, and you just face planted and you put up what, 10 points in that game, and 7 of them were basically a pick six because Atkins got you down to the 2-yard line.
That was me and Jason kind of after the game. Like I go down there, Jason stays on the field the whole game, and after the press conference, and I was like, there is something very, very bad going on here. And yeah, I agree with you, Christian. There have been signs for a long time, and someone listening right now is screaming to point at the New Mexico State game from 2023. But it's so funny, Christian. You and I were talking last night, and I think this goes back to some question marks about maybe lack of preparedness and game planning and that sort of thing. Because this is now 3 straight years you have been whipped at the line of scrimmage by a team that had no business doing that. New Mexico State in 2023, Auburn didn't turn the ball over in that game. They just got manhandled. Vanderbilt last year, people want to say, oh, Diego Pavia got Hugh Freeze again. Diego Pavia didn't do anything in that game. Auburn couldn't move the ball. They scored 7 points. They had 0 turnovers. And then this time around, I mean, you mentioned it, the stunts, 7 sacks for Kentucky. And so I think it just goes back to and look, all 3 of those games were in spots where Auburn should have had momentum. They just won SEC road games, and then they came back home and did nothing with it. And so it's just sort of another notch in areas of Hugh Freeze as a head coach and his tenure as head coach, where it's like, man, you really should have done something with that, but you just couldn't come up with any momentum.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to me, it all does point back to quarterback. Quarterback's the most important position on the team. You're hired in part because of what you've done at quarterback at Ole Miss and Liberty, because that's the position you've got to have. You don't have to be dynamic. You don't have to be great, but you got to be able to make plays at quarterback, make good decisions, and they just didn't get it done. Peyton Thorne was a guy that made some plays, but too many turnovers for him in 2 years. Then this season, you put your eggs in a basket, and hey, I like Jackson Arnold a lot. He's been really good to us, and he's a talented guy, but talent doesn't always equate a fit into an offense. He just did not fit in this offense, even though he said, look, hey, I grew up playing this offense. I still think, hey, if he's playing for Gus Malzahn, where it's, hey, here's the play, throw it to this guy. I think he's a guy that can excel and do those things. It just hasn't worked with this quarterback system with so many options and so many things on the quarterback. And I think that's been in large part maybe a lot of this offense, because you think back to the offensive line and you're going, what's an RPO? Well, then, hey, they think they're blocking as a running play. The quarterback says, no, I'm throwing it. He pulls the ball and then holds it. Well, they're run blocking. They're pass rushing. Well, you're not blocking that guy. You have no chance to do that if you're run blocking. He's pass rushing and the quarterback's holding the football. Everything's just been thrown off. And I think it points back to quarterback decision and just not getting the right guys. And in the end, in this day and age, you look up and you go, and you can have the absolute 100% right fit. And you look at an Indiana where you go, man, you go get, Fernando Mendoza, and you go, man, it looks like it's the absolute perfect fit. And then you go look at Miami, and they pay a bunch of money for a guy, and you go, well, it looked like it might work out okay, but 3 or 4 games a year, he's going to turn it over a couple of times, and you're probably going to lose, and you're not going to be in the playoffs. Auburn went and tried to strike gold, and it just didn't happen. And that's part of the issue. Greater issue is just overall just a lack of flow on offense for sure.
Quarterback will be something that is talked about, I think, not just in the Hugh Freeze era, but just something that needs to get right in the near future. But we've got a lot of time to talk about that. It's gonna be a long coaching search, but I completely agree with you on that, Jason. Before we get into some of the coaching search, just ideas and thoughts we have early on, Christian, you spent a lot of your day catching up with a lot of recruits, getting a lot of reactions. Without giving away the game too much, I mean, just what was kind of the general vibe? I know we've seen one decommitment so far for Auburn, actually a flip for Eric Perry, but just kind of tell us about what the general vibe was from recruits today. Surely they couldn't have been overly surprised by this.
Yeah, for Eric, I mean, we've talked about it on the show a couple times. Auburn was looking to kind of move on and go in a different direction. This was kind of a very perfect, natural way for that mutual parting of ways, so to speak, to occur. So that was not a huge surprise. In terms of the commitments that I talked to and, the different targets and whatnot, wasn't a huge reaction. I mean, a lot of these guys, by the time people are listening to this on November 3rd, look, signing day is December 3rd. Signing day is in a month. And so these guys, they're waiting. As of now, there haven't been any other changes on this staff. And so you talk about a guy like a Braylon Womack or a Jace Matthews. Obviously, Marcus Davis is going to be talking with Jace, TJ Rushing talking with Braylon. You go down the list of who's talking with who. And they're kind of waiting, but a chunk of them are definitely going to start looking around. They're going to hear out other schools. I mean, they have been already. That's just part of what recruiting is now. You're going to hear out schools until the very end, and so it'll be a chaotic next month for this interim staff, for whoever is hired to come in as coach, if they're even hired before signing day, who's trying to sign guys on signing day and whatnot. And we talked about it in the live chat. At this point, I'm not saying you just throw away high school recruiting, because that's obviously not how you build a program whatsoever. But the most important part of whoever is hired to be Auburn's next head coach will be come January, with roster retention and the transfer portal, and trying to keep the guys that you need to keep, going and getting the guys that you need to get. With signing day moved up so early right now, there's really only so much you can do. You hold on to the guys that you really, really want to. You try as hard as you can with Braylon Womack, with Jaquez Wilkes, with all those different guys. And look, the defensive guys, I mean, DJ Durkin is the interim coach. For right now, they feel really good about that. What happens if whoever is hired and DJ Durkin is not retained, or if he departs for another defensive coordinator job right before signing day? It's impossible to tell right now. But as of right now, everyone is kind of, for the most part, in wait and see mode with Auburn, while also talking with some other schools. Braylon Womack is going to go visit Texas A&M. They've been in it for a while now. So it's a bad answer, but it's wait and see. You kind of have to just wait this out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we are in this whole process right now. It's any coaching search. We've all done this enough. I mean, shoot, I've done it way too many times, and I haven't covered this team very long. I know you've done it more times, Jason, but it all bottlenecks at the beginning, and then you sort of have to pace yourself and realize this is going to be a long process. Now, we are lucky enough it's not going to be a Penn State or a UCLA type process. They were gracious enough to wait until the month of November, but this coaching search is going to take its time, and Auburn's obviously going to do their due diligence here. And you obviously have the fact that you can't make a lot of these moves until certain things play out in the season. But you just talked about it, Jason, and I think it's, you mentioned Auburn trying to get back to a competitive level in the SEC. And regardless of the fact that this is such a crucial hire because your last two have turned out so badly, I just think you have to, if you're John Cohen, you have to focus on, I know this is going to sound very rudimentary, you just got to get the best football coach. I don't think you can have many asterisks this time around. And recruiting is great. Recruiting is very important. Hugh Freeze just showed
it's less important in a revenue sharing NIL era.
Hugh Freeze just showed recruiting is not everything.
Yep.
I think you got to hire a coach who's winning football games right now, maybe not at a super high level, but somebody you believe in. And the choices, this is such an interesting coaching cycle, Jason, the choices, you could name off one of a long list of coaches right now and tell me they'd be Auburn's next head coach. And I'd be like, great, sure. Why not? Let's make it happen. It really is that type of cycle right now.
I agree. And you also start talking about it. Look, everybody has warts. Like there's nobody. I'm not making 0 people that you could hire right now and you go, well, that's a guaranteed full-on home run. There's no way to know it. You can think and you feel pretty good about some of the guys. You feel better about even a couple of others. There's no way of knowing it's absolutely guaranteed. No way. You look at Texas A&M hired Mike Elko, and you go, he was there. He'd been there before, and you go, man, he got a chance to be okay. He took over a roster that had a lot of talent, and he's turned it into the next one. That's what you're looking for right now. Going, who can keep most of this roster together, and who can push it to the next level? That's really what you're looking for. Going, roster retention is important. You're right. Recruiting less important. I think something to pay attention to in this one, though, is I think something that people are overlooking in this when you start thinking about the attractiveness of the Auburn job as compared to others. You got a lot of built-in NIL that's going to come into play next season for this roster. You got the game in Atlanta. You got the Nike. You got Jimmy Rain. You got some other things. There's some built-in NIL that's going to push Auburn's roster and that quote-unquote salary cap a little higher than people might believe. I think it's going to be something that coaches are going to go, okay, that sounds intriguing to me. I think it's going to play a factor into this one for Auburn. Now, again, it still doesn't change your talent pool and the coaches you're choosing from. It's still going to be the same group of guys. All of a sudden, because your NIL is what it is, all of a sudden you're not going to go, hey, Ryan Day, come to Auburn. Like, there's not many of those guys. People go, I go hire a proven winner who's won big games. How many of those guys are there?
And that guy's not leaving.
Dabo's one. Do you want him? They're 3-5 heading towards a 7-loss season. I mean, like, you just don't know. And so that's why it's like, look, due diligence, you're right. Energetic. I don't know. I'm going to throw this one out there too. Not a person, but a type of person.
Mm-hmm.
I think younger, flexible, more used to this climate.
Yeah.
And the things that are going on now. I think older football coaches right now, old school coaches, it's more difficult for them, especially got people who've been head coaches longer. I think it's more difficult than ever. I think these younger guys, newer coaches, maybe I think it could be an advantage in this market to think about having to deal with everything you got to deal with now.
I would have a rough criteria, and this is just me. I would have a rough criteria of you've won a decent amount of games this decade, because Auburn hired Hugh Freeze to be what he was back in 2014 ish. And that just didn't work. I think it's pretty clear the offense passed him by, and we just mentioned all the issues with his system. But he just got a bunch of really good players at Ole Miss and just let it fly. And then he comes to Auburn, and you mentioned that keyword, Jason, and flexible. That is so much more than just hire an OC if they want you to in the offseason. That it is about so much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned today's climate. You just have to, roster building is so important. Using the portal is so important. But like you said, like, there's a good argument to be made for a lot of these guys. And I'm with you. I sort of lean younger. I think there's a pool of young candidates out there right now that you could throw some money at, say, here's a great job. Here's the top 15-ish job in the country. We're going to give you the world for 4 years-ish. Have at it. If it works, great. If not, oh well, move on to the next one. But I just think you're afforded that opportunity right now if you're Auburn, because unfortunately for them, the bar is pretty low right now. The bar, like you mentioned, you're not competing for championships. You're just trying to get back to a bowl game right now.
Yeah, I think. There's a lot of ways to go about it. I don't think anybody's ever going to go the full-on Peter Burns model. But in this day and age, what's to go? Hey, look, we like this guy. He's really dynamic. He hasn't been a head coach before, but look, we're not asking him to call plays. All he's doing is he is the CEO role model guy that is guiding people. We're not going to pay him as much money as these guys. We're going to use that money to go get the best OC and DC he can get. And he lets them go. And you build a great coaching staff with a guy maybe that you're not paying $8 million a year for. Maybe you're paying a guy to go, look, you're our guy, you're our energy guy, you're our leader, you're our go-get-them guy. these other guys, they're going to coach football, and I don't know. I think it's an interesting model. It'd be a case study, but I don't know who that person would be. I don't know. I think right now there's so much on a coach to go. You got to do all this. You got to do all this. You got NIL. You got all these responsibilities. People said, "Hey, you need to be a CEO coach." Well, it almost right now would almost maybe wipe out a guy that calls his own plays. It almost would. Now, I'm not saying it does, but I mean, you go, okay, man, there's not many of those guys left that are still doing that at a high level. And there's a few, and the few that are still doing, they're doing it really well. But I don't know. It's kind of spitballing, but man, this is an opportunity to think outside the box. If you're Auburn and going, look, we're going to handle this one a little differently and see what happens, and go get the best OC and DC and build a roster. You build a roster, let them coach it, and you be the CEO. I don't know. I think it's an interesting take anyway.
Christian, you've been teasing it for a little bit today to various people. So go ahead and give us your pitch for John Gruden as Auburn's head coach in 2026.
No, I've been jokingly teasing it a little bit, although it turned into a debate in the live chat because someone said, would you rather have a guy who won a Super Bowl over a guy who's coached at Tulane and Troy, obviously referencing John Summerall. And no offense to John Gruden, but his last time coaching college football was the wide receiver coach at Pitt in 1991. And he was never a college coordinator. And look, you can have all the Super Bowls you want, but we're seeing what's happening up in Chapel Bill and not quite working.
Yeah, and it is more like the NFL than it's probably ever been, but it's still different. It's still
way different.
Yeah, I agree. And so I don't know. I don't know, Nathan. You mentioned Summerall. That's one of the people that if you start building a board, he's one of the people that has to be on your list, and he's been really successful. I went and looked 38-11, something like that in 4 years. Was 23-4 or something like that at Troy. It's been successful. Hard-nosed, physical, new school kind of coach. He's one of the guys that we believe will be at least you knock on the door at some point during this process.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier it's hard to just get a home run guy because you can't get those guys from their current school. I think the closest thing to that is if Auburn goes back to the well of Lane Kiffin. He's such a wild card, and that situation is so interesting there at Ole Miss. I think Auburn would be ridiculous not to call him, and not to try to figure it out. But you're also competing against LSU and Florida. But something I wanted to mention as well, Jason, that you brought up earlier, is the attractiveness of the Auburn job. Auburn is the only job of those three big SEC jobs. Sorry, Arkansas. That is going to have both a president and an AD. LSU and Florida don't have presidents, and I think the feeling at Florida is that Scott Strickland is going to be out as the AD. So
LSU does have a governor, though.
Yeah, LSU's got a governor and a board of regents, and that's about it.
I'm not saying Auburn's a better job than this. I'm just saying
those are things that coaches talk about. That you start talking about alignment and things like that. And listen, alignment and vision had nothing to do with Auburn not being successful this time, because they are in lockstep from Dr. Roberts down to John Cohen and everybody involved. They're in lockstep about what the vision is for Auburn athletics and Auburn football. I think that has to be a positive for Auburn in this regard. I agree.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier. Somebody was asking me, hey, what do you just tell me your thoughts, like family friend, about the Auburn job? It seems like there's so much turmoil there, and there's all the boosters and blah blah blah. And I said, I think the last two hires, the coaches have not been very good. I think it's very black and white. I do not think there is a difficult situation here. I do not think it is any more complicated than any big program in the country. The last two hires just didn't work out. I think it's as plain and simple as that.
One was incompetent off the field. One was incompetent on the field.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. And I agree though. Like especially you can get back to Alan Green and go, look, there were some issues when
Sure.
you start talking about the previous. This one, like I said, with this current situation, and I've said it before. Like I said, it doesn't guarantee success, but they are as aligned as any Auburn group has been in the last 25 years. And look, people can talk about all they want to, and Auburn always gets a bad rap. LSU's 1,000 times worse than what Auburn's going to right now. It's not even close. Other school, everybody has boosters. Every one of them. I don't care where they are. Boise State, you can go anywhere you want to. They all have them. And now they all use their money for NIL. So that means they're all involved, maybe more than they've ever been. Nobody's any different. And so because of that, I mean, you're going to have folks that are involved. Do I think that's going to impact this decision a great deal? No, I don't think so. But you also, those people are important. And so, but John Cohen, Dr. Roberts, whoever else is involved in this one, listen, they're trying to go win football games and trying to get Auburn back to winning. If they didn't, then they would have said, "Oh, we'll just keep doing this." And I think there was a chance that would have happened, but after last night, that sealed the deal.
This is not an impatient, short leash program right now. It's not.
It's every program.
Correct. Things were untenable at the end of, you just couldn't do it anymore with Hugh Freeze. But like you said, if they had gone 7-5 this year and beaten Vandy on the road or something like that and looked like they were getting better, I agree with you, Jason. I think Hugh Freeze would have been the coach.
Yeah. No,
I don't think they wanted to do this in the sense of they were just ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah, no, this wasn't. Yeah, I agree. This wasn't some fly by night going, "Oh, well, we're done. Let's move on." This was, "Hey, we believe this is that," and then we're like, "Okay," until we can't believe it any longer.
Yeah, so it'll be, and we're going to get to hear from John Cohen on Monday. So as you guys listen to this on Monday morning, we'll hear from him in the afternoon. Should be a very insightful conversation there about what lies ahead for Auburn. We'll hear from DJ Durkin as well, the interim head coach, as Auburn's got to get ready to play a football game, a ranked SEC road game on Saturday, which is what we all forget about.
Got to see who's calling plays, who's doing what. Maybe with him moving to the head coach. There's a lot of things to kind of figure out now in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and it'll be. Sorry, go ahead, Christian.
I was gonna ask y'all a question, but you can finish up, Nathan.
Oh no. I wasn't really going anywhere.
Oh, okay, fair enough. To Jason's point of different things to figure out. Who would you start at quarterback against Vanderbilt? Because I know my answer. Yeah.
If it was me, and I was, and normally this is not done. But in this world, if I was John Cohen and the athletic department in general, I would want to know what Deuce Knight could do in the last 3 games this season. Because whoever the next coach is, you have to know if that guy can be your quarterback or not for the next coach. Because, and maybe you go a different direction anyway, but I think you need to find out. And right now, you got 3 games left. It's not going to hurt a red shirt. You can cut it loose and see what happens. And not one person, other than the current players, even them, they go, well, okay, let's go see what the young guy can do. I don't think anybody would go, man, you shouldn't have done that. Just see what happens. I would say, hey, Ken Austin, you coached in the CFL. This guy throws it a bunch. You got a bunch of wide receivers. Try to find a way to block guys up front and let's sling it and see what happens.
And I think it's also because we were talking about this in the live chat tonight. I do not think DJ Durkin's candidacy at Auburn for this head coaching gig, which we haven't really discussed. We'll talk more about candidates in the future. This is not really the episode to go into it because it's so early. But I do think, we all think, Durkin will be somebody that's looked at because of what he's done here and because of the opportunity he has now as the interim. I don't think his candidacy depends at all, maybe not at all, very slim on what happens here at the end of the season. He's being dealt a very difficult hand. The situation is rough, and it's difficult for an interim coach to do it. What I'm saying is I don't think anyone's going to hold it against him if he goes out here and loses some games.
Definitely not if you roll Deuce out there. And
yeah. But on the flip side, if you roll Deuce out there and you go to Vandy and win 31-17, and then come home and beat Mercer, and then play toe-to-toe with Alabama in a shootout kind of game and score some points, it absolutely could go the other direction where you go. And that's something you could see working and that's why I think, to me, there's a lot more upside with going, hey, let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, Jackson's had his chance, so nothing really, no love lost there. Ashton has not over his red shirt or threshold, so he's fine. And if Deuce plays in every game, he is right at the 4 games, so he's fine as well. So everybody goes home happy. We'll see what. Yeah, I doubt Durkin will get too much into it tomorrow because they'll be getting ready for the game plan. Maybe we'll learn more during the week. But guys, this is going to be a crazy month. We'll see how long it goes. We'll see what the candidates look like. I know everybody's eager to talk about names, and that is the most fun part to me. It's fun to speculate. Like, I truly do enjoy the early stages of this where you can just make the arguments for different guys and you can say who your guy is, all this stuff.
John Gruden, baby.
And that's what it is. And that's what it is. It's a lot of speculation early on.
Yeah.
Somebody asked us, like, who's the first person that got contacted? Oh, we're 8 hours into this. Hold on.
First person that got contacted was Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, like, hey, listen, there might be some initial contact, but it's not going to that guy. It's going to agents or
Sexton.
or his helper or whoever else. Long way to go, and we'll see how things shake out. Like I said, it may be 2 or 3 weeks before you start to get a feel for where this thing may be headed.
Yeah, the twists and turns along the way. I remember Harsin, that coaching search. It was Billy Napier. That was a big day. People thought maybe that was going to happen. Steve Sarkisian was really in the mix there. I might be forgetting somebody else before they landed on. Kiffin was in the mix then as well, before they landed on Harsin. And then the last time, it was very clear, like the last week of it was like, oh, this is going to be Kiffin or Hugh Freeze. It was very clear that those 2 guys were the ones. And then the Kiffin thing kind of crumbled like the day of the Iron Bowl in 2022.
The morning of.
And we all were like, oh, I think Hugh Freeze is probably going to be the next coach. So we'll see what happens this time around. You never know what that road is going to look like. And at auburnundercover.com, we will be keeping you guys up to date the best we can. It's already been a huge day over there. Me and Jason were at the football facility. Players were in good spirits, I will say as well. And I think that's another thing to note that I'll just mention real quick before we get out of here. These things can look very different, and the Harsin departure looked very different. You also had naming Cadillac the interim then, and people were like, the players were really jazzed up about that. It's less, Jason, it's less about they're not happy to see Hugh Freeze go. And players even said today, like, there were some players who were like, we love Freeze. Like, we're sad to see him go. But now more than ever, as guys were saying to us today, they understand. They understand the business.
Yep.
And they can have respect for Freeze and understand, while at the same time saying,
well, hey,
Durkin's awesome, and we can't wait to play for him. Those two things can exist at the same time.
And we have a job to do.
Correct.
That's what it is. Here's the other part of this. It's the same argument where people are talking about, oh, man, but they're sad to see their teammate go. These guys lose 15, 20 teammates a year now. I mean, like, these guys they're going all the time. It's the same thing for coaches. It's a business. They understand it, just like the NFL. They're not moping around outside when a teammate gets traded or a coach gets fired. You go, okay, I got to play for the next guy. Let's go. It's the same way now in college football. It's tougher for probably younger guys because it's their first experience. But when they see their older guys get back out there and get back on it, it's kind of like the defense the other night. He said, the defense is just going to go out there and quit. No, they're not. They're not going to do that. They haven't done it yet. They've had plenty of opportunities, and they haven't done it yet. They didn't again Saturday night. I think this team will go out and play hard again, and DJ Durkin will have them ready to go. Can you find any offense? That'll be the big question mark once again as we get through this week.
Yeah, I don't want to come off as like too brash, but like everything you guys said, it's a business. And like, look, Hugh Freeze is getting a big buyout. He's getting a lot of money. Like, I'm not saying this, I'm not trying to be mean, but like, he'll be okay. That family will be okay. He was great to us. He was great to cover. We enjoyed covering him. He was one of the most media friendly coaches you can have. The guys that you feel bad for are the personnel people, the assistant coaches.
And that's the tougher, that'll be the tougher part because that's in December. Once the season's over with, then is when the real, because those are the people that can afford it. And you don't want anybody to get fired because
Yes.
listen, I know we've been running long, but standing on the field Saturday night was one of the most, I won't say infuriating, it's not the word. It was one of the saddest moments in my 27 years. And it wasn't for Hugh Freeze. Because you look over there on the sidelines and it's the families of all the assistant coaches and their kids that are listening to this as it's happening. And they're wondering what's going to happen to us. To me, that was the worst part of it. I mean, Hugh Freeze is a grown man. He has been here. He's done it. It was all those other people that are going, man, you got little kids down there listening to that. To me, that's the part that gets lost in this. And you're right, Christian. It won't be till December, another month, when that will really have an impact.
It's the Rock Bellantonis who come back to Auburn. And again, he comes back in a year where a coach gets fired. It's the Chad Lunsford who just, comes to Auburn this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's those guys. It's their families. It's the personnel people behind the scenes who aren't even making as much as those assistant coaches are. Things like that. That's the unfortunate part.
A lot of people involved in things like this, for sure.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part.
And the cool part about that, though, is just like you see every time something like this happens, there will be opportunities within the next month for those people to have greater coaching responsibilities, greater recruiting responsibilities. And we've seen it time and time again, guys. These people don't quit. It's a business. And, you mentioned, guys like Marcus Davis staying on the phone with a guy like Jace Matthews. Like, is Marcus Davis going to be here next year? Probably not, but he's not going to stop recruiting to Auburn right now. Like, it is the month before you hire a new coach. Guys are always giving it their all. And guys and girls, everybody in the personnel department are always giving it their all, trying to recruit, even if they're not going to be here next year. So it's an interesting living, breathing thing is a football program. And there's certain parts of it you have to always think about, even if they don't always rise to the surface and everybody doesn't always pay attention to them. So I think that's a great point by Jason. But yeah, every nook and cranny and every facet of this thing we will try to have covered for you guys. I've got about 1 billion questions for Cohen and Durkin tomorrow. I'm not going to get all of them in, but it should be a very insightful Monday press conference. Oh, by the way, there's basketball tomorrow night. Remember that? Remember when Bruce Pearl retired? Yeah, that happened. New basketball coach, Stephen Pearl. And so we'll have that for you guys tomorrow as well. Like Christian said earlier, 60% off right now. I have no idea when we stop running this. If I will probably, I didn't put anything in the story. We'll probably just stop when they hire a coach. So if you go to our site, you probably can take advantage of it. We would love to have you guys. The live chat went off the rails in about 4 messages, so that is to be expected. We will have a bunch more.
It was one mess. When the first message had 4 questions in it, we're like, okay, we're off and running now. Let's go. So
we don't hold you. That's a benefit of being a subscriber. We do not hold you to a question limit. If you can put 89 questions in one message board post, and
don't say that.
we might get to one of them.
Don't say that.
Maybe
Christian
2.
Christian will get fired if he doesn't.
Don't encourage someone to do that. Just let's go slowly.
if anyone is going to do that, though, it's going to be Patrick. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I won't ban him if he does that.
You hear that, Patrick? All right, we'll call it a night there, everybody. Thank you guys so much for listening. Tune in to AuburnUndercover.com all week. We will talk to you all soon.